Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a Triad production. I'm your host, Sharlee Dixon, and today I am joined by Melissa Hiemann. Melissa is the co-founder of the Center for Healing, an online education company pioneering transformative therapies since 2016. Melissa's journey from personal struggles with addiction and mental health to profound self-discovery led her to create certified courses that address trauma in mental health and addiction recovery. Melissa is the creator of the methods of root cause therapy and trauma-informed manifestation coaching, and is also the author of the book, The Natural High. Melissa's expertise, rooted in her own transformative journey and bolstered by teaching certifications, guides others toward healing and growth. We're excited to have Melissa with us today to discuss trauma healing, spiritual growth, and her work with the Center for Healing. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So as we get started today, can you discuss what sparked your interest in alternative healing, especially around healing trauma?
Yeah, for sure. So with my own personal journey, I grew up in kind of like domestic violence and all these traumas that happen, broken family, had no idea how to process my emotions, had no one to talk to, was also bullied and alone at school. So I didn't really have a safe space anywhere. And then narcissistic step parents came into the picture as well. And that turned into me rebelling as I became a teenager, drug abuse, not going to school, things like that. And yeah, it was really that self-medication. And I was doing okay with life. Like I'll get to a certain point, I try to like impress my dad, with my manifestation skills of like, yeah, I've got a really nice job and a nice car and everything looked good on the outside, but I just always felt awful on the inside and I was still using substances. And then it wasn't until I was 26 and I had sabotaged another relationship. I'd lost another house that I bought. I was trying to keep up appearances on the outside, but I was feeling awful on the inside. And then a mutual friend was doing life coaching and hypnotherapy and I went and saw him. And in that session, I realized so many things about how my traumas have affected how I think today and my relationships and how I see the world and my insecurities and how I see myself. I didn't realize the impact that trauma had. And as he helped me heal some of those things, I realized that I was often the cause of the problems. Not that the trauma was my fault because I was a child, but later in life, instead of being a victim to like, people need to choose me and like, I want validation kind of thing. It turned into, oh, wow, like I'm actually have some kind of power here. And I became really empowered. And I walked out of that session and I saw the world differently. I really had an awakening about what was the driver and that our past does affect us. And so I went really deep into personal development. And then that guy actually did a training a few months later and I was in a sales job. I'm like, yeah, it'll be great to learn NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming and things like that. He goes, yeah, it'll help with your sales job. And I went in there and I realized halfway through it was a lightning bolt that hit me that I am meant to be helping people get out of their own way. I'm meant to be doing this work. And it was like I found my purpose. And after I finished that course, 2 weeks later, I resigned and I never looked back. So I think that was 2014, 2015.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your personal history. And oftentimes I think that our clients come to us and they think that we've lived these perfect lives, but really a lot of us have experienced trauma and we tend to get in our own way, like you mentioned. So how did all of that inspire you to create the Center for Healing?
Yeah. So after I started my own business, I was kind of mainly doing life coaching with entrepreneurs and helping them get out of their own way to just start or grow their business. And then I hired a few business coaches to help me. And one of them was into shamanic, like inner child healing. And it was the most intense experience of my life. I'm like, how is this business coaching? But yeah, it shifted me in so many ways by working with my inner child that I was like, wow, there's so much more to this therapy work, as in we can tell people, we can talk to people about like, and give them tools. We can help them navigate maybe why, or make assumptions why they're doing what they're doing based on theories and what other clients have gone through, but actually working with someone to work with their own inner child or inner children or traumas, it's very intense work. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's definitely something that's transformational if you've got the right practitioner to work with. And so I still had some addictions at this point. I was still smoking and I was still drinking and I was still having marijuana because I still was trying to manage my undiagnosed anxiety and things like that. And yeah, and so I went on this whole journey of looking at lectures on addictions and how people can overcome addictions. And I came across Dr. David Hawkins' work, and he works with the scale of consciousness. And he talked about addictions and how everyone's just trying to feel okay. And everyone is trying to personally raise their vibration into just feeling peaceful and loved. And if we don't naturally know how to do that, or we have a lot of suppressed emotions because of what we've trapped from childhood, what's still in our body, hence the body keeps the scorebook, which a lot of
Yep.
listeners may have heard of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then when we find a substance that we have that helps us to feel better, of course, we're going to go back to it if we have no alternative. And so we're not so much addicted to the substance. We're addicted, obviously, to how it makes us feel. And that's why when we stop doing it, our personal stuff comes back up. The flashbacks come back up. The emotions come back up. And so when we take the drug, it's like, oh, it's nice, it's self-soothing. And I'm like, it was just kind of like a real moment for me where I was like, wow. So all I need to do is somatically look at releasing these emotions, like in regression and things like that. And literally a few days later, after I have that epiphany, an old acquaintance walked into my office and I nearly didn't recognize him, Sharlee. Obviously I didn't say it, but when I first met him, he was really a gym junkie, buff and everything. He walked in, he was about 15 kilos lighter. His clothes were ripped and dirty. He was gaunt. And I knew he was going through a divorce at the time when I first met him. And he said, yeah, I've been addicted to methamphetamines and GHB and I've been living in a drug den. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, I was like, I don't know what to do. But another part of me is like, exactly what to do. I already had a framework, to run the sessions and everything. So that was fine. But reminding myself about the addictions. And I just explained it to him, like Dr. David Hawkins did with the scale. And I said, you're just trying to feel up here and you're just coping with all of this and you don't know how to cope with it, and he had gone to rehab and tried different things, but we ended up doing some inner child work of why he feels alone and his anxiety and healing some sadness from the divorce. And he walked out after, it was actually a 3-hour session, but he walked out and he never used again. And he's never used since.
Wow.
And that's not typical, but just to make that clear, that doesn't happen for everyone. I think that was meant to be because then he continued to see me and then he went and signed up for a alcohol and other drugs course. So in Australia, it's called AOD, diploma. And he kept raising his hand every class and saying, when are we talking about healing trauma? When are we talking about healing trauma? And that course, it's just not included. It's not a part of it. And it just blew his mind. And so he ended up messaging me and saying, hey, I don't know how long this is going to take or if you can help me, but can you train me? And I want to learn what you do. I want to help my friends. I want to help people that are still struggling. So I was like, okay. So I got all the books and all the lectures and everything. I'm like, this is, how I've kind of pieced together the method over the last few years. And so I trained him. And then the girls that I was living with, they were healers as well, we had been helping each other for a year, working on each other, teaching each other. And I started falling out with them, I guess. And he said, do you want to open up a center together? I've said, yes, I want to help people with mental health. He wants to help people with addiction. I didn't have much money because I was in the studying phase and he had just finished being a drug addict. So we didn't have much. And sorry for anyone that gets upset about the word addict or someone that's experienced an addiction, I should know better. And yeah, we just started with nothing. We got I managed to somehow, with my connections, get an office and a really old office in an old medical building that had one room and one little reception area. They left the furniture for me. We borrowed $1,500 off his mum and we're like, let's just see how it goes. If it goes well, it will grow. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we created these 2 programs, which included root cause therapy being the main therapy. And we made it an outpatient clinic We also had a sauna and float tank center pretty much next door. So that was very helpful. And we included that
Okay.
in the programs. And literally a week after we move in, like we're trying to set the place up. I'm writing the programs. We got a feature article in the big newspaper in Australia about Ryan's story, and we just blew up straight away. Like I'm booking people in, like the microwave's still in the reception area. I'm like, yeah, come in. And we were flat out straight away. And people were just getting incredible results. And we were really set up for people that have gone through the mainstream methods and it just wasn't working for them. They wanted something alternative. So we've been very transparent about that from the start, but people absolutely loved it. And we had people from all walks of life, but also obviously with mental health and addiction, that comes in all walks of life. And within 6 months, we grew to a team of 5. We had to move into a bigger center. And at the beginning, I would go to doctors and things like that, and they would just walk off on me, like because we didn't have the proper credentials. And by the end, we were getting so many referrals from doctors, psychologists, like counselors, just because their clients were coming in and sharing their feedback of how successful it's been for them. Yeah, so that was like an incredible journey. And so we're like, okay, let's franchise, let's spread this out. Like we can only help so many people in Melbourne. So we did all that. We instigated a lawyer. But then I had a baby and and I didn't have time to run a clinic. All the practitioners that were working for us, plus start a franchise across Australia. And so I thought, what is the alternative? And for years, people asking us, will you train us in this method? Like, this is amazing. And I was always like, no, no, no. I was quite protective of it. But once you have
Gotcha.
children, your priorities change.
Changes. Yeah, it changes everything.
Yeah, it changes everything. And I thought, well, everything's set up. Like, I've pretty much made a franchise. So I'm just going to make it online training and see how it goes. And my intuition was like, you have to move online. You have to move online. You have to move online for months and months. And I was like, all right, like I'm moving, we're doing it. I started the first iteration of the root cause therapy certification. And I said to my partner, well, we work online now. Do you want to live somewhere else in the world? I want my son to grow up somewhere like beautiful. And we both just immediately thought Thailand, Koh Samui. Weirdly enough, so we're like got a baby and we like pack up our whole house. I'm crying at the airport, like I don't even know what I'm doing. We've told the girls like we're shutting the center down and we'll give them clients, and I'm still very close friends with them today. But on that plane, we were on the last plane to Thailand before COVID hit, and we were stuck on a tropical island for a year, training people from all over the world and starting that journey and that next iteration of helping people that, you know, we couldn't just do it ourselves. And now there's people all over the world. And not only root cause therapy, we've created other certifications now as well. And that's exponentially grown, which is so incredible, so amazing. Yeah.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Nearly 9 in 10 registered voters believe the nation faces a mental health crisis, according to a new USA Today Suffolk University poll. Americans are more concerned than ever about their mental health. Mental health first aid provides the resources and training to identify, understand, and respond to signs of mental health and substance use challenges. It provides the confidence and skills needed to offer life-saving assistance, and it provides peace of mind. Our experts provide mental health first aid training for adults, teens, caregivers, veterans, law enforcement, EMS, and school faculty. Mental health concerns are on the rise, but evidence-based training through mental health first aid can make a difference. Visit mentalhealthfirstaid.org to find a course near you, or email hello@mentalhealthfirstaid.org to schedule a training. Courses are available for individuals, groups, organizations, and companies of all sizes. Visit mentalhealthfirstaid.org and make a difference in your community.
It is really interesting how at the time, I'm sure it feels like one simple choice, like I'll just go to this one little training, and it really has changed not just your life, but really the lives of clinicians and people really all over the world. So thank you for attending that training, that one type of class.
Yeah.
I appreciate that your approach really looks at alternative types of healing and really checking out a person for their whole self, not just that general talk therapy that we see a lot of times. It goes beyond just that chatty in therapy and reaches into the inner child and really works on generational trauma as well. So
Yeah.
you mentioned root cause therapy. Can you tell us some more about that? Help us define it. What is it? What does it do?
Yeah, so root cause therapy, how it was created is a combination of really powerful therapies that I found. So regression, inner child healing, breath work, somatically releasing the emotions. And for the clinicians that are listening, it's kind of like a psychodynamic therapy, but instead of just, assuming where things are coming from, we're actually taking someone in regression to take them to where the root cause is, hence the name root cause therapy. So basically what we're doing is a part of it is talk therapy. Like the first part of the session, we are doing a little bit of like, it's very client centered in the way that we get feedback from the client, we get numbers. My previous jobs, like where there was a lot of paperwork, a lot of data, like I was in international trade. And so I translated that to root cause therapy where we're getting numbers of like, how do you feel out of 10 about all these areas of your life, which is kind of like a life coaching thing that I put into it. But
Okay.
with the trauma, with the somatic work, if I was to say anger, who or what comes up for you from birth to now, and even you guys listening, you'll probably have a few names or
Mhm.
experiences that pop into your mind. Sorry about
Absolutely.
that. Don't project it onto me. Yeah. And so when we go through those, and we even say traumas as well, and obviously we're like, know a patient a little bit first before we're going and talking about the traumas. But we're really tracking and we're really getting data and feedback, and we're even tracking like, are there any behaviors or thoughts that you have that you wish that you didn't? So it's a very structured way. I can, if this comes on YouTube, I can show what we call the testing sheet, because for me, I found a lot of therapy and healing work very intangible, as in it's not tracked, and some clients can feel like they're going around in circles, So the people can't see it when they're listening, but it's a testing sheet. So it's very specific where we're like tracking every session, we're tracking what's happening, we're actually getting feedback on what we need to prioritize in each session and when and where. So when I first studied, I was like, what do I do when? Like, and I'm in
Mhm.
mainstream therapy groups where you guys, come out of your very long and amazing trainings, but there's not always a framework on how to run a session. So I
Right.
set about like creating that framework. So that's a part of it. And then we're checking for core belief systems that can often be caused by trauma. So some of them are, I am alone, I'm not good enough, it's not safe to be me, I'm not heard, I fear rejection, I need validation. Because we're all born inherently like, usually like we love ourselves and we don't need validation and things like that. But over time, when these traumas and experiences happen, then these belief systems that are caused in these traumatic moments and locked in with the strong emotions, they actually indicate what we think about the world, what we think about ourselves. They influence all of our decisions. We generalize people. Like if we've had a lot of trauma with men, for example, we might
Mhm.
say, not trust men in general.
Right.
And these generalizations can occur in these traumas, and it can really restrict people's lives, and it can really get in their way and cause procrastination, negative self-talk, all of that. And so what we do is we ascertain, okay, exactly what's going on. So we actually use kinesiology muscle testing. We get the client to self-test and we can see what beliefs they actually have in the subconscious. And I've said it a few times that root cause therapy is about not making assumptions. It's about getting actual real data and feedback. So once I've ascertained that, we'll go based on their goal, either for this session or their program or this container working with us. Well, what could we prioritize? And then we put someone slightly under. So they're still fully conscious and awake and in control, but we're just putting them under just enough so they can access their memories. So there's pre-developmental memories, there's memories, ages 4 to 7, when sometimes we do remember them, but people that experience a lot of trauma don't remember them. So going to therapy can be very frustrating sometimes because they just literally their mind is trying to protect them by suppressing and repressing certain memories, trauma. Some people can't remember the whole childhoods because it was so stressful, as you would probably
Yeah.
know, Sharlee.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's a
Yeah.
protection mechanism and
Mhm.
that's the body and the mind doing its thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if there are things that are affecting our day to day, then with root cause therapy, we can actually access those. So when we put someone under, there is a script of like, what is the root cause? And we ask, is it before, during, or after birth? So before birth can be that generational trauma, where there are studies on epigenetics and trauma can get passed down. The cherry blossom study, if anyone wants to look that up, look into how generational trauma can get passed down in their DNA. But good things get passed down, but also traumas. And just say, for example, with how the evolution of humans and how we've survived so well. And we're all kind of scared of spiders and snakes, right? Well, there's a reason for that. It's encoded in us to help us survive. And so other things can get stored in our DNA as well. Other things that could affect our survival that have been passed down generationally. And so one of my own personal experiences is I had an issue with going to a restaurant. I would always have these weird thoughts of, oh, there's not enough food. Oh, I can't, I'm like worried, like there's not enough food in the world. I'm like, this is such an interesting, strange thought to have, but I couldn't relax and go to a restaurant. And even I would avoid going to the supermarket. I would not like buying food. I would have these intrusive thoughts about it. And so someone that I trained, I got them to do a root cause therapy session on me. And I went back and I was actually in my grandmother's village in Sri Lanka. I was in my grandma's body and I was holding the baby. There were 2 little kids by both of my legs. And I was at the kitchen and there was like an older girl kind of standing behind me. And I was like, this is so strange. And I had this overwhelming feeling of there's not enough food. And all I had was like some rice, some small amount of rice to feed all of these babies. And yeah, it was an awful feeling. And so I processed that emotion. So what we do in root cause therapy is the unprocessed and what gets trapped in the body is what's holding the trauma still in the body. And it holds that energy. So what we do in root cause therapy is we actually get the client to actually finish processing the emotion, digesting the emotion that wasn't digested at the time, whether it wasn't safe to, whether there was no one there to help them process it, they didn't know how to process their emotions. So the practitioner turned up my emotions so I could finish feeling what I was feeling and release it all. Because when we're emotional, we don't always make the best decisions, right? And so releasing that emotion, I got clarity, like, okay, I realized that there was some food, so they could be fed, but I was able to release that trauma from my body and have a realization of the root cause of why I was having those intrusive thoughts. And then what happens is that it's like Gestalt therapy in a sense of like we're going to the original event and we're healing that first event. And so we ask the subconscious to bring us back to now and preserve the learnings. What happens is it just goes flash, 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 flash. And any similar event or event that's been caused by that original root cause flashes up. So it cuts down the therapy time increasingly because they're not having to go to session after session for the same thing. It's like, bang, that one issue is usually done in that one session. And it's great for survivors of CPTSD because complex trauma is usually over and over and over again, and there's a theme and a pattern. And so that chunk can all get healed on the way back, and the client is getting their own realizations. We're not telling the clients like, oh, we can make suggestions, but because their prefrontal cortex is still switched on, they've still got their critical mind, they can say if it resonates or not, but they're getting their own inner wisdom and their own realization. So it is like being able to go back and kind of start your life again with better wisdom. And so in this particular event, I came back to now, I was like, wow. And I'm like calling my mom. I'm like, Mom, like I had this weird experience, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yes, that is me, my 2 brothers. That's my cousin that used to come over and help. And my dad, which is my grandfather's business, had just failed recently and they literally didn't have any money. And so she confirmed everything, and she had never told me that before. And obviously like she was a baby, so she hardly remembered, but she validated it. And we had like client. And so that there's in the womb. So we have clients that go back into the womb, they're feeling what their mum's feeling, they're able to process, release it, give that back to their mum, give that burden back. I don't know if you're aware of IFS or internal family systems, or for anyone listening, but we take on these burdens of children, of our parents often. And so giving that back and releasing, if our mum felt very alone, or if our mum, obviously emotional, which made my pregnancy so hard, by the way, because I was so aware of like I could be causing my baby trauma, and I'm like talking to him, and Yeah. And so anyway, and even ages 0 to 7 or even later, like we can go back and we can reparent our inner children with root cause therapy. So we can heal their trauma, but we can reparent them and give the advice that they needed. Because trauma isn't always what happened, it's sometimes what didn't happen. They didn't get the support they need, they didn't get the love that they needed. And so being able to go back and reparent them and be there for them, whether it's just holding them, whether it's giving them advice, whether it's their 2-year-old that was left on their own, as I was I wasn't really looked after properly, but I was able to go back and I was able to help her because I got disassociation from that. I was neglected a little bit, and I was able to go back and I felt the disassociation leave my body, like by me just hugging in my mind, I'm hugging my inner child, that part of me. And for some people, like sexual trauma, major traumas, our clients can actually take their inner child out of that situation and out of that event and kind of into their heart. So they're healing the trauma, but then they're also going, your body, which time travels every day and can get triggered every day. We're taking that and we're making it safe now. And that's the whole thing,
Nice.
is with trauma, is helping someone to finally feel safe in their body.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it sounds like that root cause therapy really can work to address lots of issues. You mentioned things, of course, like trauma, addiction, or substance abuse, mental health issues, maybe even some anxiety, different types of behaviors, and even how it goes along with procrastination. It's very interesting to me, that connection between the two, because even as a clinician, I hadn't really thought much about how those things go back to the traumas that we have experienced, and even sometimes the lack of, and what that can create in us going forward. So some of the strategies that you've mentioned that you've used, some of it is some breath work, inner child healing, even some ancestral trauma. Again, some of those things are not necessarily discussed, especially the ancestral part. And traditional talk therapy, are there other types of techniques that you use that make root cause therapy unique?
Yeah, there's another one as well. I'll just go back to like also what you were mentioning before, because we have a list of those core beliefs, and then we have a list of money beliefs, money blocks, and we have a list of relationship issues as well, like limiting beliefs, like relationships
Mhm.
lead to pain. And, people recreate that and reenact that. So they see abusive relationship when they're growing up. They're like, oh, this is how you love, and they recreate that in adulthood. But then also for the practitioners that do the training, we have a whole list of business limiting beliefs as well. So it is for people that want to work on their performance as well. But in my journey of growing my business, I realized there's so many blocks that come up that are from financial traumas. They are from stress traumas. If we've burnt out before, we don't want to grow our business. Consciously, we might want to grow it, but our body will be like, hell no, you're not growing this. Like, I'm protecting you from getting burnt out again. And so we can sabotage and really procrastinate from stress traumas, just being an adult. So I just thought I'll touch on that. But yeah, going back to root cause therapy, we do look at other things as well, because we are again looking at someone holistically as a whole being. So we do look at physical issues as well. So for anyone that looks at the ACE, or you've looked at the ACE studies, yes. And how our traumas and how toxic stresses from growing up can affect our physical health as adults. So
Mhm.
that's something that we do monitor as well. And we do actually have a database of possible causes of the physical issues. But of course, with root cause therapy, we can ask for the root cause of physical issues. And so I've helped people with pain, I help people with diseases, I've helped people that couldn't get pregnant and things like that. Not saying it's always guaranteed, but sometimes there are subconscious reasons why. It could be that when growing up, they only got attention and love from their mom when they were sick, right? And so then their body creates this realization where it's like, oh, when I'm sick, I get looked after, or I'm only loved when I'm sick. And so it's this psychodynamics where it's like, we don't want to say to someone, you're making yourself sick. We let recourse therapy do that more for them to see, if it's something that they're unconsciously creating because it's serving them on some level. And we call it unconscious payoffs. So we look at that as well. We do look at it as personal development. So as the client is talking about their history, or as we're going through that testing sheet, as I mentioned, we do really treat it like this is a personal development journey. There's nothing wrong with you. We're just like reconnecting you with who you really are and helping you become limitless, like the movie Limitless, to anyone that's watched that.
Yes.
Clearing those limitations from who you really are. And I can vouch for that because I thought I was dumb. I pretty much nearly failed school. I was told I was dumb, but I was actually disassociated. And the more healing work I did, now I've written a book. Now I've created a multi-million-dollar company. I wasn't dumb. I was, I was disassociated from the trauma. And so that's really an important thing to mention is, as a clinician is taking someone through a session, they're thinking about, this article would be amazing for them, or, this podcast would be amazing for them to listen to. And we're not just tools, but we're sharing them to get their own thirst for their own personal development journey. And that's how we approached it at the center. We're like, you guys are VIP, just be really positive about it. They're not coming in like, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. Let's find out what's wrong with you. It's really like, I can see your potential. Let's get you there. And that's the vibe that we had. Yeah. The other thing too, and this helped a lot with the heroin addicts that will come in, is we would do future work. So imagine your timeline, you've got your past and all of the things that you've experienced is all recorded unconsciously. You just don't remember all of it. And then you've got now, which is often the result of your past. And then we've got our future. So as we cast our mind into the future, a lot of people will have either positive or negative goals in the future that they're working towards. So someone that's stressing about a negative outcome, often it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they're aiming all of their power to result in that happening. But unfortunately, if we've had a lot of fear in the past, a lot of trapped emotions in the past, that anxiety about the future is quite automatic. And then, obviously we put good goals in the future or we book a holiday, we get really excited and it changes how we are in the now. And that's what's really important, is how we're feeling in the now. And anyway, so when we ask someone to go into the future, when they're in that slightly under state, we ask their unconscious mind or their intuition or whatever their belief system is around, source energy or God or whatever, show me a positive event or a positive goal for me to see in the future that will help me the most today. And we say, is it months or years in the future? And so they go out to their future and they go into an event, and some people are like tears of joy. Some people just all of a sudden they're like beaming, either a goal that they have, they're experiencing, it's done, or it's a completely like different thing they couldn't even imagine. And going back to helping people with addictions, some people have never felt true love, like with their caregiver. They didn't have a proper attachment. Trying heroin, and I tried it in my addiction days, like you get this flood of oxytocin and love and this warmth. And so some people have never felt like pure joy because, all these things that have happened to them. And so when they go out to the future and experience it for the first time and realize that it comes from within and they have access to it. And not only that, we get them to ask their future self, like, what's advice to help you get to this point? Again, we're tapping into their own inner wisdom. And some of the advice that comes through for them is amazing. Some of it's quite funny, like, just do it. You know that you just need to do this thing. or like, this is the course that you should study, or this is what you need to do with your partner to help you to get to feeling this connected with them as you are in this event. So it's actually mind-blowing, and people stop addiction sometimes just that is healing enough for them, where they realize that all the chemicals in our body, all the hormones, they're already within us. If we do look after ourselves and learn how to reparent ourselves, we can access those without substances or outside things. So yeah, that's a part of it where we would normally do that near the end of working with someone for like at least 8 to 12 sessions, I would say. Yeah, because if you have someone come in and you try and do it in the first session, they're going to see a future based on all their current limitations. But if we clear a lot of those limitations, do a lot of the healing work, then a lot of the limitations are gone, and what they're going to see in the future is going to be way better. So that's something kind of like the cherry on the top at the end of working with someone, not to say as you only do 8 or 12 sessions. I have clients that I've seen for years and they just see me once a month. Just we could heal till we die. Like there's no point where you're like, I'm healed, there's so much to work on. And so, yeah, it's important that, people get to the point where they feel stability in the now and the present by healing the traumas, but then there's no need to rush and try and heal every single thing from every ancestor and every moment in your childhood. It's something that kind of you got to take your time as well, because your nervous system can only handle so much of this work. And some people do too much too quickly and their body can go into a shutdown freeze state where that's not helpful either. It's really good for people that are just like, I just need to clear some stuff out and release some of these symptoms. And, the other thing with root cause therapy is, and obviously we're not licensed therapists, although a lot are taking on this therapy that are licensed, but, we're not here to diagnose anyone. We just look at it like the DSM-5 shows, you have these certain symptoms and then you have this label. For us as a root cause therapist, we're like, you have these symptoms, let's just work through those methodically,
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. And so I've heard a lot about what success looks like and what those outcomes really look like. And I'll use your exact words. They are mind blowing and like the cherry on top. And so some of that you've mentioned has been the relief from addiction, the relief of trauma in our bodies and that ancestral trauma that we may not have even known that has been in our past that is, showing up in different ways in our futures. So is there a personal story of someone that you work with that is experiencing this type of trauma? And then what happened? How was the therapy helpful for them? And what did their life look like afterwards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had someone come in and he just felt like really depressed. He'd taken antidepressants for a very long time. He didn't want to take them anymore. Not that we try and help them get off it. Again, we just treat the symptoms. And yeah, we just had the first session of his program and he was like, oh my gosh, that was like 10 years of therapy that I've just experienced in one session. And like you were saying earlier, it's not so much top down, it's top down and bottom up of how we approach it. And so it's much quicker in the sense of we can actually get to the reasons why. And so obviously he asked me permission, but he gave me a big hug and he was just crying because he was so relieved. And another one is someone that is actually one of our trainers now, but he had gone to rehab 17 times, like 17. And it wasn't until he started doing this work that he actually, well, obviously he's a practitioner now, a therapist. And it was because he obviously in rehab, he would have got a counseling and detoxing and everything like that. But it wasn't until he did this deep work that he was able to completely let go of the addiction. So they're just a couple of small stories. And obviously I use myself and I've kind of sprinkled it through our talk, my own experiences. It's so hard to like encapsulate, like there's like so many stories that even when you guys sent me in the questions, I was like, I can't even answer this. Like yeah, it's life-changing in a sense of, again, it awakens people to their subconscious and that it's not their fault, but at the same time, they've got power now. Oh, there was one guy actually I can share and he had active addictions for 15 years straight. So every single day from 15 to 30. And he came in and he was like sharing, just going through the testing sheet. And when we went to do the healing, it's almost like he didn't go to events. He saw some like symbols and things like that. And I'm like, this isn't really going how it normally goes. And anyway, he came in for like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and he completely stopped all of his addictions that he had for 15 years straight. And he was like, he was mind blown. I was mind blown. He could start getting into memories as well. He still today sends me clients. Now he's got children and he's very successful at his work. And that's probably one of the the most lovely ones where we still keep in touch and he's still doing amazing. So yeah.
Nice. And you said small successes. None of those sound small at all. Your work is quite fascinating to me, as I would think our listeners would be as well by your work. So for those listeners and myself that are clinicians that might be interested in root cause therapy or your certification courses, what can they expect from them?
Yeah, so they are on all online and self-paced. So how we structure it is that you come and you sign up for the course and then you get lifetime access. So there's no like you've got 3 months or a year or whatever to do this course. You get lifetime access to the course. You can ask questions under every single lesson and I get back to you within like 24 hours. And there's a really thriving community, hence why we're having a conference because everyone is always asking to meet up and creating their own things all around the world. And I'm like, okay, we need to like bring everyone together. There's so many beautiful relationships created in there because of the practitioner hours that need to be done, the practice sessions on each other. So there's lifelong relationships that are created in there. We do weekly live calls. So there's again, it's lifetime access to supervision with me. So every month I jump on for a live call and every week we have senior practitioners in different time zones around the world that do the Q&As as well. So whether it's someone that's just starting the course and has questions about the course, or they've been doing root cause therapy for 3 years and they just had an issue with a client that they just need help to nut it out, just as you would in supervision. So yeah, that's all included. And then we have so many bonus trainings that come with it, how to create your signature program. As I was saying at the start, we basically created a franchise. So we've got documents if you want to grow your team, how to do trainings for your staff, how to, because root cause therapy you can do online or in person. And so we teach like how you can promote online, how you can promote in person. There's courses on trauma info, like running your business and your marketing in a trauma informed way. Yeah, there's so many like extras. There's a research course that would literally take 2 years to go through, but you go at your own pace. I add protocols. So there's protocols. So if you have a client that has anxiety, depression, sleep issues, brain fog, physical issues, so you can literally print it out before your client comes in and know how to customize it to them based on us conducting thousands of sessions and our experience on how to best help them with those issues. And yeah, and then we actually have other practitioner trainings that people often lead into and do as well. But the best way to find us is, so if you go to the centerforhealing.com, and sorry for those of you that are in America or Canada, it's CENTRE, not ER for center, but I'm sure the link will be in the show notes. And the centerforhealing.com/free-courses. So we actually have free pre-trainings for each course. So for root cause therapy and our other certifications, because it's very important that you resonate with the teacher and how we teach. And so you kind of get a taste of what is in the course and how I teach, and then you can decide whether it's for you. And we also have a free certification that actually around 65,000 people have taken to date around the world, which is a free certificate to become trauma informed. So we have clinicians and parents, and the Victorian University just published it as a resource in one of their papers to help children in the community to become more trauma informed, which for those of you that know polyvagal theory and things like that, we cover all of that in there. Yep. And then we have other courses. So embodied processing, trauma informed manifestation. So if you go to that page that I mentioned, you'll see all those are free courses. There's understanding addiction. There's a course in there for families of people with addictions as well, if they want to know how to best support their family member. That comes from Ryan and Matt, who had the addiction. So it's from a lived experience perspective. And yeah, so they go there, they'll find everything, and we can obviously like link our Instagram and everything like that, and they can reach out. We've got a chat in there if they have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for those tips and tricks on where to find more information about the Center for Healing and those training courses and certifications. Before we leave today, can you leave us with a final message to our listeners about the healing power of root cause therapy?
Yeah, so root cause therapy is this missing tool in your toolkit of empowering your clients to be able to actually find the root cause and heal their symptoms rather than making assumptions or guesses or theories. And the reason why it's empowering is because you are just the co-driver to their journey of them healing themselves. At the end of a root cause therapy session, as a practitioner, we have a post root cause therapy high that we experience because it's so mind-blowing and we learn so much from our clients because we are really all on the same level. So that's probably what I would leave with in regards to root cause therapy. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today, Melissa. I've really appreciated having you on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to thank you so much, Melissa, for joining me today. I have really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you to our listeners for taking the time to join us. The resources for this episode and an archive of all of our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. And come join our wellness community at hellotriad.com to connect with mental health professionals, share insights, and engage in meaningful discussion. And we look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Network, all rights reserved.